Good morning, Claudiania. We will wait another 2 minutes just to let the other attendees to join us.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. Doctor, you can start, I think.
So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Let me share my screen with you. All right. So my name is Dr. Reem Salem. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering, Electrical and Computer Engineering. My specialty is power systems and control systems. And my research is on a device known as the fuel cell system. And we will speak about it today because it is one of the devices that are used to actually power electric cars. And so I will explain the concept behind fuel cells and how they operate as well during our lecture today. All right, so just give me a minute to share the presentation. All right, so I will be showing you the QR code. If you want to use the QR code, or you can use this website over here, this link over here in order to join the slides from your phone or your laptop, or you can just look at the screen. All right, so this link is going to be showing on the top of the slides all the time. All right. Okay, so our topic today is on electric vehicles. So, of course, the most famous electric vehicle, and I think everybody knows about Tesla, but Tesla was not the first producer of electric vehicles. And there are actually different types of electric vehicles. And this is what we're going to be trying to explain and show today in this lecture. All right. So basically, what are electric vehicles? So electric vehicles, they are vehicles. They could be buses, they could be trains, they could be, any moving vehicle that actually does not use fossil fuels to power its motor. So basically, they use electric motors for their traction. So to rotate their wheels and to drive as their driving force, they use electric motors instead of combustion engines, which we are used to in our normal cars that use petroleum or diesel as a fuel. So we have basically two different types, we can say, of cars. So we can classify them using different classification techniques. So we can classify them here initially by electric vehicles that have off-vehicle sources, electrical sources or energy sources, and some vehicles that have self-contained sources. So when we have an off-vehicle source, this is similar to the picture we see here, the first one. So this train, as you can see, it's getting its power from this collector that it has on the top of it. Some trains also get, like the Dubai Metro, for instance, they get their power from the tracks themselves. Okay, so they collect whatever power they need from the tracks themselves. So these are devices that have off-vehicle sources for energy. Now, the majority of the cars that we know that drive in the streets, for instance, they have self-contained power sources. So this self-contained power source can either be a battery, it can be solar panels, we can have fuel cells, which I told you about in the beginning, or we can have any type of electrical generator. All right, so it's any type of electrical generator that converts any type of fuel. I mean, it doesn't have to be a fossil fuel, any type of fuel into electricity. All right, without the into electricity without being outside. Okay, an outer source. It is self-contained in that car. So why do we prefer electrical vehicles? Why do we need electrical vehicles? Now, did you know that the largest source of climate pollution is actually transportation? So we are, with everything that we have right now, we have pollution coming from factories, from industries, from our everyday life, from our use of fossil fuels. But the major effect of this pollution, or the major source of this pollution, is actually the transportation. So if we can limit the use of fossil fuels in transportation and introduce more electric vehicles, then we can benefit our environment. So our environment is going to be cleaner, healthier, and we're going to have less negative effects even to our health, because it has been proven that this air pollution that is caused from gasoline and diesel cars causes a lot of medical issues to people, such as asthma and cancer. And by limiting our the number of cars that we have, the fossil fuel cars, and introducing more electrical vehicles, we can actually limit those negative effects. Now, electrical vehicles also, they have smaller carbon footprint, which is, this is what matters to us right now, is that they don't have, emit those harmful fumes to the environment, because the most harmful fumes are like, for example, CO, which carbon monoxide, and also carbon dioxide, but mainly carbon monoxide is emitted from all of those cars that use combustion engines, from burning those fossil fuels, whether it is diesel or gasoline. And we don't have that in those electric vehicles. Most of those electric vehicles, they have zero emissions, most of them. Some of them have very few, very light emissions, and therefore they are clean for our environment, and they help us reduce all of the negative effects that we have from those fossil fuel cars. Now, also, if you purchase an electric vehicle, you get a lot of benefits from the government, from the environment. So, for instance, in some countries, they give you better parking spots if you have actually an electrical car. So you don't park far away from your work, for instance. You don't work from where your work building is. You don't park far away in the malls. So you get the best parking spots in the shopping malls. You get the best parking spots in the office buildings. So this is one of the incentives that is given by the government or by the countries in order to encourage people in order to buy or to use more electrical cars versus the normal gasoline cars or diesel cars. The maintenance, you don't require a lot of maintenance for electric cars. However, for fossil fuel cars, you basically need a lot of maintenance. Electricity also is cheaper than gasoline. However, in some countries, like here in the UAE, you get to charge your car for free. So if you have an electric car, that's a plug-in car, you basically charge it for free. In other countries, you get reduced rates for electricity when you are actually charging, when you have an electrical car. So although electricity mainly is cheaper than gasoline, but you still get another discount. So you get further discount for charging your car, or you get it for free like here in the UAE. Also, another incentive that is given by governments is lower taxes. Some countries have taxes, like purchase taxes. So once, or even income taxes, they give you, when you get the incentive of buying an electrical car, so you're giving back to the environment, they give you lower taxes, all right? And then the alternate goal, of course, is to have a cleaner environment, and a cleaner air, not just for you, but for your children and other people surrounding you. Now, when did we first start to have electromotive power or electrical cars? So basically this started in 1827 by a Hungarian priest. So this Hungarian priest basically, can I move this? Yeah. So he built the first viable electrical motor. And a few years later, in 1835, a small-scale electric car was also built in the University of Groningen in Netherlands by a Professor Sibrandus. And between 1832 and 39, another scientist from Scotland invented the first basic electric carriage. And this electric carriage was charged or was powered basically by non-rechargeable cells or non-rechargeable battery. However, around the same period also, we started having electrical cars that moves on rails, and they were getting their charge off the vehicle. So it was getting their charge or being charged from the rails themselves. Now, we did not have mass production of cars, of electrical cars, until early in the 1900s in the USA. And this was because of many limitations on the batteries themselves. So batteries, they are bulky, they take a lot of space from the car. And they also have a lot of issues, for example, short life, for instance, and they get to deteriorate very quickly. So those limitations on storage batteries made cars, electric cars, once they started in the early 1900s, not very popular. However, the trains or the metros or the trams that gained their power or that obtained their power from off vehicle, from the tracks and from the rails, they got to be very, very popular in that era, all right? But right now we have a lot of advancements in technology and a lot of improvements. So basically those batteries are being improved. They are becoming smaller, they're becoming more effective, and they're becoming and having a larger or a greater lifespan. So that's why we are seeing right now an improvement in this area, and we're seeing more electrical vehicles in the market. So like we said before, we can classify electrical vehicles using different classification techniques. Right now here, we're going to classify it with respect to the power source. So whether they have pure electrical power inside them or whether they use a hybrid technique. So we have many electrical cars that are available now in the market and that we see here in the UAE that are basically hybrid cars. So they don't only use electrical energy from batteries, for instance, but they have also combustion engines. So they have a fuel tank, just like normal combustion cars, but they have both technologies. So like the one you see in the photo over here. So these, we call them hybrid electric vehicles or hybrid electric cars. So what these cars do is they use mainly their battery or the battery charge in order to power the car. However, once they run out of charge, then they get to use the fuel tank that is also added to the car. So if you keep charging your battery regularly and you don't let it run out, you basically end up using the car as an electrical car rather than using it as a combustion car or a combustion engine car. And other pure electric vehicles, they actually use pure electrical energy, so they don't have any combustion engines available in them. And basically they can be powered by fuel cells, they can be powered through battery banks, they can have solar panels, so they can have multiple energy sources, one or multiple energy sources that are pure electrical sources, and they don't have any fossil fuel engines in them. So now let's talk about each one of them. And let's see what models are available in reality, which famous car manufacturers produce these cars, and let's compare between them. Let's see what are their the positives about these cars, negatives about these cars, and how effective they are. So let's start with battery cars, which are cars that have batteries in them. So you actually plug in, we call them also plug-in cars because you plug them into the grid in order to charge the batteries that you have inside your car. And then these cars basically only exclusively use the chemical energy that is stored in those rechargeable batteries. just like the Tesla car, for instance. So these cars were first introduced in 1884 by Thomas Parker. And this scientist, he used his own special designed high capacity battery in order to power his electric car. Now, those electric cars usually give very good acceleration. They have a very good speed range. However, like I said, limitations on the battery once they started in the 1880s. Batteries were still bulky back then. They required a lot of space. They did not have a very good charge range, and also they had a lot of limitations with respect to recharging, with respect to lifespan, and therefore they were not that popular then, and we didn't have mass production in that era. And also another point is that when you recharge your car, it takes a significant amount of time. So right now, if you go to a petrol station and you try to refuel your car, it takes you like what, two to 3 minutes? So it's not a substantial amount of time. So you can spare 2 to 3 minutes in order to refuel your car. But actually, if you go to plug in your car and recharge it, it might take a few hours. It might take 5, 6 hours, 8 hours, depending on the model, depending on the size of the battery. All right. So again, that was one of the negatives of battery cars. So you can see here different manufacturers produce such cars. So I gave you a full table that has the manufacturer. I'm giving you the speed range, all right, or the top speed for the different models that they have. So Audi, for instance, has a car that has a speed range of top speed of 200 kilometers per hour, which is 124 miles per hour. And the charging time, however, is significant. You can see it is 6 to 8.5 hours in order to fully charge your battery. So that's a significant amount of time. So if you want to charge your car, this car, typically you will put it to charge overnight, because that's when you can spare the time. So you can plug it overnight and charge it overnight, but you cannot waste 6 to 8 hours during the day to just sit around in your car and charge it. So typically, most of those electrical cars are basically charged overnight. The nominal range, kilometer range that it gives you between 328 up to 433 kilometers. We have different models, and the range of those models go between 328 to 433. And it was first released in the market in 2019, and it is still being produced. BMW, on the other hand, has another car that gives you a top speed of 150 kilometers per hour. It needs 46 charging time, 46 hours charging time, and the speed range is between 130 to 246 for those models that they have. And they have been producing it between 2013 and 2019, and then they stopped producing that car. And then you can see other models as well. So we have Chevrolet, we have Citroen, we have Ford, Honda, Tesla, for instance. So Tesla, for instance, has multiple models. However, they still need 7.3 to 8 hours of charging time. Their speed range goes between 217 to 261 kilometers per hour, which is a very good speed range, high speed range, top speed range. And they give you from 400 to 700 kilometers, which is again at full charge. So if you fully charge your battery, you can get up to 400 kilometers or up to 700 kilometers, depending on the model, which is also a very good high range. Tesla started to produce its cars in 2012, and they still do until today. So you can see here the different manufacturers that produce electric cars that are powered by batteries, and you can take a look at these. However, like I said, we have many challenges that happen for electrical cars, and especially when they are charged by batteries. So I'm just giving you a news strip over here. So this news strip was issued on 25th February, so 2021. So just 3 days ago, all right? So just 3 days ago, I saw this news report, and it says that Hyundai is recalling 82,000 electric cars. So 82,000 electric cars were being recalled because of problem with the battery. So 15 customers that actually purchased the car found out, reported that they had fires in the vehicle. And therefore, Hyundai had to recall all of the cars that it has sold this year, which are 82,000 cars. And this is going to cost Hyundai a substantial amount of money. So basically, it will cost it $900 million. So that is considered one of the most expensive recalls in history. And this is why it was reported in the news, in CNN Business actually, and they said that this is the most expensive recall in history that has been done by any manufacturer, and it has just been issued, and this recall was just issued 3 days ago. So just very recent. It will cost them to recall the cars and fix those issues around 11,000 per vehicle. So for each and every car, $11,000. So that's a substantial amount. So therefore, we still have challenges going on with respect to those battery cars. And however, science is improving, technology is improving day after day, and things are getting better. We are designing better batteries, we're designing better cars, and you can expect, like in the coming years, for things to become even better, for charging time to become even smaller, and the battery size itself to become smaller. All right. Now let's talk about hybrid cars. Hybrid cars are also available. They have like batteries, like we showed before. They have batteries and they have a combustion engine as well. The first gasoline electric car was produced in 1889 by a scientist known as William Patton. Now, however, until 1990, which is just recently, around 20 years ago, this was not, this car did not take off, and we didn't have mass production of such hybrid cars. But after 1990, then we started to have mass production of these cars, and they started to be widespread, and many modern car manufacturers started to produce them, like Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Cadillac, Lexus, etc. So I'm putting examples of some of the famous manufacturers that produce until today. They keep producing hybrid cars. However, the most famous car and the one that is being sold, and the best-selling car, is the Toyota Prius. And the photo of Toyota Prius, the hybrid Toyota Prius car, is given to you over here. So this is the most famous car, and it is the bestseller in the world. Next, let's talk about solar cars. So I'm pretty sure no one of you heard about a solar car or saw a solar car like in the street, because they do not exist yet. So yes, we have small scale toys, cars. We have some cars that have like golf cart, for instance, that have solar panels, but they still have batteries that are rechargeable from an external source. So we don't have a pure solar electric car. So, however, this company now has promised to produce the first pure solar electric car, and it's called the Lightyear One. So this promise, or this news, came out in 2019, so just around 2 years ago. And the mass production just started this year, beginning of this year. They started the mass production of this car, and you can see it in the streets really soon. So this car uses solar panels purely, all right, in order to produce, in order to charge it, in order to charge the batteries that they have involved. So you don't need to plug it anywhere. And this car also is promised to drive up to 500 miles on a full charge, which is a substantial kilometerage. So 725 kilometers, which is better than what the Tesla promises, or what the Tesla provides. It also consumes only around 83 watt hour per kilometer, which is very, very low compared to other electrical vehicles that we have in the market today. And the production just started, and this car costs around $170K, so $170,000. However, I'm going to leave you with a video to show you this car, and you will get to appreciate it.
This is the Lightyear One, an all-electric luxury car that, according to its creators, can drive almost 500 miles on a single charge. Compare that to the average electric car that gets around 190 miles. And even Tesla's top model S
Right. So basically, as you can see from this video, we can still plug in the car, but when you plug the car, it's just like you can get fast charging, but you don't even need to plug it in. It can get all its power from the sun, even in windy days, so it can achieve a good mileage. Right. So like I said, however, this car is not in the market yet. So this is what they promise. So once we see it, we can hopefully sell more and see if this model is really going to be successful. Production just started this year, but it's not in the market yet. Now, the last type of cars, electric cars that we're going to speak about is basically the fuel cell car. So I'm pretty sure most of you don't know what a fuel cell is. So I'm going to be explaining what is a fuel cell and how it operates later on. All right. So basically, a fuel cell car is an electric vehicle, and this electric vehicle, it uses hydrogen as a fuel, hydrogen and oxygen. So this is all it uses. So it uses hydrogen from canisters. So usually these canisters are, this is the fuel that you fuel your car with. So these canisters are inside your car, and they don't weigh too much. They don't take up much space because mostly we can get compressed hydrogen in those tanks. So they weigh from around 5 to 6 kilograms, those canisters that you have inside your car. However, they can give you twice the distance that is given by modern internal combustion engine cars. Now, what do I use to produce electrical energy? So basically, it only uses this hydrogen and it uses oxygen from air. So it takes oxygen from air, the surrounding air. It has plenty of oxygen. And the emissions that the only byproduct that it actually emits to the environment is water vapor, which is actually clean. Okay, so I'm emitting water vapor. So this is the fumes that I get out to the environment, simply water vapor. So I have zero negative emissions. So it is completely clean. All right, a very clean car. So how does this technology work, and what is the history behind those fuel cell cars? So basically, the first fuel cell car, it was a minivan. So this minivan that you see over here in gray, and it was produced by Chevrolet in 1966. Now, this minivan had a 120-mile range, and it had a top speed of 70 miles per hour, which is really acceptable. However, it was very expensive to produce this car because fuel cell technology is very expensive, or it was very expensive back in 1966. And therefore, they only actually produced one car, so they did not produce multiple vans. So only one van was produced. And then the project was deemed to be not cost effective, and therefore they stopped producing it. And it did not get much attention back then. However, later on, we started to have more fuel cell cars as the fuel cell technology started to improve, and we started, it started to become smaller in size and cheaper. So then right now you can see multiple fuel cell cars available actually in the market. So what is fuel cell technology? How does a fuel cell actually produce energy from oxygen and hydrogen? So basically the hydrogen energy or the fuel cell technology uses, it's like an electromechanical device. This electromechanical device is silent. It doesn't have any noise, any sound at all, has no vibrations whatsoever, all right? And it only converts the chemical energy that is in the hydrogen into DC electrical energy. It has low environmental impact. Now we have 6 different types of fuel cells available in practice, and these are the 6 different types. So we have phosphoric acid fuel cells, proton exchange membrane fuel cells, alkaline fuel cells, solid oxide fuel cells, molten carbonate fuel cells, and also direct methanol air fuel cells. Now, the type of fuel cell that is actually being used in cars is basically the proton exchange fuel cells, or we call it PEMFC. Now, these fuel cells, how do they operate? So I have a, okay, it's supposed to be animated, but anyways, all right, so I have a photo here that shows you a single cell. So it is called a fuel cell, but inside a car, we basically have multiple cells. Each and every cell basically gives me around 1 volt of voltage. It can produce around 1 volt. And so basically the ideal voltage is 1.23, but we have a few losses, so it can give you around 1 volt. And so we stack up multiples of them in series in order to get a higher voltage. So usually we don't have a single cell inside a stack, but we have multiple of them. However, let's see how a single cell operates and how does it produce energy. So what happens in this cell, we have this PEM, which is the proton exchange membrane, which is the membrane, which you see in pink, this layer in pink. And then we have a cathode and an anode. So this membrane is sandwiched between a cathode and an anode. And what happens is we have hydrogen fuel connected to our anode. And in our cathode, we take oxygen from air. Okay, oxygen is available in abundance in air, so we take it from air. So what happens is that the hydrogen gets into the anode and it passes through into reaching the PEM or the membrane. So when it reaches the membrane is made out of a polymer that does not allow negative ions to pass through. So it basically breaks the hydrogen. We know hydrogen comes in molecules of H2, so 2 molecules combined together, or 2 atoms combined together. Each and every molecule has 2 atoms combined together. So it basically just breaks those molecules or those molecules, and they become positive ions, and all of the negative ions, which are the electrons, are freed, and they are not allowed to pass through the membrane. So those positive ions will pass through the membrane to the other side, and they will see the oxygen that is coming from air. Now, because I blocked the electrons, so the electrons have to find an alternative way to pass. All right, so they will not be stuck here in the membrane, but they will have to find an alternative way. So their alternative way is actually to go through the circuit or the wires that we have. And as they go through those electrical wires, they actually power my load. So I put here a lamp to represent my load, but my load can be, in the case of the car, is actually the motor, the electrical motor. So they go there and they power my electrical motor, and this is where I get the electrical energy. And then once they go back, they join those molecules, the positive ions, the positive ions, hydrogen ions that have passed already from the membrane, as well as the oxygen that I have in the cathode, they join it and they produce water vapor. And this is what I actually produce to my environment. So this is the byproduct of the fuel cell technology. So it's a very clean technology, has zero negative emissions, and this process is silent, very quick, very efficient, and it produces a lot of electrical energy. Now we have multiple models or multiple manufacturers that produce actually fuel cell cars. Some of them have stopped their production and some models are still in production until today. So for instance, Honda, Ford, Nissan, Mercedes-Benz, Chevrolet, and Hyundai, they used to produce models before. So Hyundai, for instance, produced the Hyundai Tucson that was purely powered by fuel cells, and it was produced between 2014 and 2018, and then they stopped the production. Chevrolet, for instance, started the production in 2007, and then they stopped in 2009. Nissan X-Trail between 2003 and 2013, etc. Most of them were available for lease only. They were not available for purchase. So they were leased. So this is the amount of lease in the US per month. So for instance, the Honda FCV was leased for around $11,500 per month, which was pretty expensive. However, the Honda FCV Clarity was leased only for $600 per month, which was much more affordable than the FCV V4. Now, the mileage on those cars is also very good. So some of them give you a mileage at full charge of up to, for example, 390. And over here we have the Hyundai Tucson, it gives up to 426, which is similar, very similar to the actual Hyundai Tucson that is like the fossil fuel Hyundai Tucson, the gasoline Hyundai Tucson, it gives exactly the same range, right? Or almost the same range. Now, the cars that are still being in production, we have the Toyota Mirai, the Honda Clarity, and the Hyundai Nexo. So Toyota Mirai was first introduced in 2015, and it is still being produced up to today. Its sale price is around $60,000, so $58,500, and it gives you up to 502 kilometers at full charge, which is again a very good range. Hyundai Nexo, for instance, it was first produced in 2018 until today. Price is less than the Toyota Mirai, a little bit like $200 less, around also $60,000, but it gives you 600 kilometers range, which is a very high range with respect to even the fossil fuel cars that we have today in the market. All right. So here are just examples of different fuel cell cars. It is convenient to mention here that most of the buses for public transportation that are available in Europe now are actually fuel cell buses. They are operated by fuel cells, and these are part of the CUTE regulations or operation in Europe. Also here in the UAE, this picture or this photo is from the UAE, from Dubai actually, and the regulations for fuel cell cars have been set in the UAE in 2019, so you can totally get a fuel cell car here in the UAE, but again, they're not very famous. A lot of people are afraid of the fact that we are charging our car with hydrogen, and that's why they're still not being very popular. But if you actually compare all of the cars together, so if you compare hydrogen cars with petrol or diesel cars, as well as normal plug-in electrical cars, the price of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles might be more expensive. So they start at around 60,000 euros or maybe $60,000. We have, this photo is a little bit old, so now they're becoming a little bit cheaper. And we have petrol or diesel cars. They are much, much more cheaper, so at around 8,000 euros. Electrical vehicles, they start at around 21,000 euros. But so you can see the difference in prices. However, the charging time, like we said, in order to fuel an electric vehicle is really high. And this is like the main disadvantage of having an electric vehicle, a plug-in electric vehicle. So it can take you from 30 minutes to up to 12 hours to actually charge your car. However, when you refuel your petrol or diesel vehicle, 2 to 3 minutes, that's the maximum it takes. It's a very similar range in the hydrogen fuel cell car, 3 to 4 minutes, that's what it takes you to actually fuel your car, but it gives you a very good range of mileage compared to like electric vehicles and petrol or diesel vehicles. However, the price is the largest or the biggest downside of hydrogen fuel cells, and this is why they're not really popular. And however, fuel cell technology is still new. It's a new technology. It hasn't been there for very long, and it's having advancements as we go every day. And we should expect in the coming few years that this technology is going to become much cheaper, and hopefully we can produce more fuel cell cars and they will be more affordable. All right. So this is basically the end of my presentation. So these are the references, and I mean, feel free to ask any questions if you have any. So thank you very much. So I have a few questions in the chat. Okay, so it's just, you're most welcome. You're most welcome, Marco. Any idea that how it can be interactive in tourism industry? For the tourism industry in basically, if you go to Europe, like I said before, they have a regulation known as the CUTE. So they started a few years ago to change all of the public transportation that they have from being fossil fuel powered to being actually fueled by fuel cells. And this was a very successful program. Now, yes, now this is a little bit expensive, but then you're going to have a quieter car. So when you're, I think one of the major downsides of public transportation is that they are really noisy, right? And they have a lot of vibrations, so they are not as good as cars. If you go to Europe, maybe you can look them up. I haven't actually seen them in practice, although I've been to multiple European countries, but so yeah, I think they would be very good for tourism. Japan is one of the countries that are really producing a lot of fuel cell cars. So even when I started working on my PhD, which was like the main thing for my PhD was fuel cells, main topic. So even my PhD was, although I did it here in the UAE, but it was funded by a Japanese company. So they are one of the major producers of fuel cells, and most of the cars that we have are basically produced by Japanese countries, like especially Toyota, Lexus, and like also Nissan, and Nissan, and also another company, which was Infinity. Yeah, they produce most of the electric cars and the fuel cell cars. Why hybrid cars are not provided globally due to technology? Well, they are provided globally. You will find them in multiple countries. They are available here in the UAE. They are available in multiple countries. However, it depends. Maybe in some countries, if they are not available, it could be due to the lack of plug-in like features. So maybe you cannot easily plug them in and charge them. So basically you will end up using the fossil fuel the whole time. But like most of the countries I've been to, I've seen it. I've seen it in Europe. I've seen it in France. I've seen it in the US, and I've seen it here in the UAE. So yeah, they're available. But basically the technology itself is there to help us use more, more electrical energy and to cut our use for fossil fuels, and therefore that's why it is a hybrid. But sometimes when you, because we don't have a lot of charging stations in most of the countries, so maybe they will be more attractive to consumers compared to pure electric cars. In Pakistan, it's not very, I have never been to Pakistan, but I would assume is that because maybe you don't have a lot of charging stations to charge your cars. more also is because of the price. The price of hybrid cars would be more expensive than normal fossil fuel cars. So if you get a pure fossil fuel cars, it's going to be much, much cheaper. A hybrid car is going to be more expensive because of the added battery bank, and the fuel tank will be smaller, of course. So if the fuel tank is smaller, then of course you should not expect to get as much mileage. So if you don't get to plug in your car and charge your battery as often, so you're going to get much smaller mileage in your car. So that's why it is not very popular in Pakistan. I would assume that that's the reason. Any other questions? Thank you very much for the great presentation. Can you say something about fuel cell vehicles and their role in combating climate change? Well, fuel cell vehicles, like I said, the main issue right now that we have is that they are really expensive. The fuel cell technology is also new. We are still exploring it. Multiple researchers are still exploring it and trying to study its limitations and its benefits until now. PEM fuel cells, which is remember what I showed you, that we have 6 different types of fuel cells. So PEM is thankfully the one that is used in cars is the one that has been mostly researched. So we know a lot about it. We have experimented on it a lot. So that's why it's being used in cars. Using it in cars will have a great benefit, especially that we don't have any negative effects. So an issue basically that hybrid cars or even electrical cars have, that the plug-in electrical cars, is that the plug-in electricity that you get, it's not really produced a clean way, right? So if I have a clean car and I have a Tesla car right now here in the UAE, and I actually go to a shopping mall and I plug it in order to charge it, all right? So basically the power that you're getting has been produced using fossil fuels. So yes, you are not, when you are running your car, you are not actually producing any negative fumes into the environment, but the power that you are using to charge your car has been produced using fossil fuels. So it is not completely green. So many researchers will argue, okay, yeah, I'm using an electric car, so I'm not producing CO to the environment, but I'm still getting power that has been produced using fossil fuels. So I am doing some good, but I'm not being perfectly good. But when it comes to fuel cell, you're producing energy from hydrogen and from oxygen, and basically all you supply to the environment is just water vapor, which is totally clean. And yeah, so they will have a huge positive impact on the climate change and on the environment if we can use them extensively. They are being used extensively, or not extensively, but they are being used in other applications, stationary power applications as well. So not only in cars. So for instance, in Germany, some of the telecommunication company, they have their backup power supply is based on fuel cells. In space applications, fuel cells are used a lot. So for example, in the Apollo, if you see in the movie, the Apollo 13, for instance, they have used fuel cell to power the Apollo rocket, and they even the water vapor, they collect it and use it to the astronauts actually collect it and use it for drinking water, because it's clean water, it's clean distilled water. So they used to collect that water vapor and actually use it for drinking. So it has many applications. It has been used in many applications, but again, due to the fact that it is still expensive and it is still a new technology, and much research is being still done to really understand it well and to do proper fault diagnosis and to know everything around it. So until maybe it needs a few years for it to become affordable for the public. What about gas and oil producing countries? Do they fully support these alternative sources of fuel for building vehicles industry because of conflict of interest? They definitely do. We are here, for example, in the UAE, which is one of the major oil producers in the world. And what the UAE is planning to achieve right now is that by 2050, they want more than 90% of their power supply or power demand to be actually supplied by renewable energy. You can see right now that we have in the UAE many solar plants, especially like, for example, the Mohammed bin Rashid solar plant in Dubai. It produces multi-megawatt of power. It's a very huge power plant. We also have the nuclear power plant that has been opened, I think, around one and a half years ago, the Baraka power plant here in Abu Dhabi. So again, this produces, so we have negative effect from the radiations, but if they were properly contained, and if we have proper disposal for radioactive materials, this is one of the cleanest sources of energy. We also have another hydropower plant that is being built right now in Dubai, in Hatta, in the Hatta area, so the borders between Dubai and Oman. And this is also one of it's going to be the largest hydropower plant in the Middle East. And so, yes, so a lot of companies that are oil producers are actually do care a lot about the environment. And because you need to put in your mind that this oil is not going to stay here forever. I mean, it's going to deplete soon. We're using a lot of oil in our everyday life. We are exporting a lot of oil to other countries. So we don't expect it to be there forever. And right now, also the oil production is becoming more expensive because most of the easily available oil has really depleted. Like in the US, for instance, the easily available oil has been depleted. So right now they are starting to get, they are starting to invent like other technologies in order to get harder oil, which is more difficult to obtain. So in the UAE, we still have that easy oil, let me call it, which is obtained by conventional oil extraction method. But we still have, as soon as this gets depleted, then oil production prices are gonna rise so much. So oil is not gonna be here forever. So it's better to actually invest in renewable energy. Using these cars can benefit countries' economy. If it can maybe benefit the country's economy if the countries are basically producing these cars. Yeah, I would expect it to highly benefit those countries. But the main reason why we are actually looking at these cars is that the environment. We want to benefit the environment. You see the negative effects that we are imposing in our environment, the global warming and all of these issues, and even health issues. We are now having more cancers and more asthmas and more respiratory diseases than we had before. So even now in the COVID-19 era, I think the COVID-19 would have been much simpler if we didn't have those negative fumes to add to it. So our lungs are already tired because of being exposed to all of these negative fumes, and then the COVID-19 comes and adds to it. So we are not as healthy as we used to do before. We have more diseases now. We have more severe health impacts because of what we are doing to our environment. So I think that's what countries should be caring about, and having a better life, healthier life, healthier environment for us and for the children to become. Because yeah, we might be careless now and we might use a lot of fossil fuels. Yes, we have negative effects in our environment right now, but if we keep doing what we're doing, things are going to be even worse for the generations to come. So we need to think about them. How efficient is solar power car? I'm not really sure. Like I said, it's new. It hasn't been in the market yet, so we cannot really study it and say how efficient it is. But they are promising a lot of positive things, like a very good top speed, a very good kilometer range, and at full charge, which is really impressive to me. For instance, when I looked at this, I think it's really impressive, and I really hope that it delivers what it promises. So we will see. It's a new invention, yes. So inshallah, we will see once it is out in the market, we will see what it delivers. And I really hope that it works, because this is going to give the incentive to other manufacturers to actually develop such cars. And imagine if you have a solar powered car, so you don't even have to plug it, you don't have to charge it, you don't have to do anything, it just charges itself. So that would be amazing to achieve. I hope it works. All right, any other questions? You're most welcome, Tanzil. All right, so I think that is it. I don't see any more questions. You are most welcome, all of you. I hope that you really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you, Tanzil. Thank you, Jasmine.
Yes, we enjoyed, Dr. Reem. Thank you for the informative session today.
Oh, thank you very much, Omar.
There is no more questions.
I don't see any more questions in the chat. Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Then we will end up for today, and we'll see you on the next session. Thank you for joining us.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice day.